The world is built on expectations. We look at a man, we see his uniform, a suit, a badge, a patch, and we instantly write his story. For men like Marcus "Hammer" Jensen, the story was already written in permanent ink. He was an outlaw, a Bandidos MC patch holder, a man whose very presence made mothers clutch their children closer and fathers instinctively check the locks on their doors. His bike, a throaty, intimidating beast of chrome and black leather, roared a warning before he ever even dismounted. Hammer wasn't just a part of the landscape. He was a seismic event. On a Tuesday afternoon, under the deceptively gentle light of an early autumn sun, Hammer found himself parked across from Maplewood Park. He wasn't there for peace or relaxation. He was waiting for a meet, a transaction, something involving the kind of paperwork you don't sign with a pen. He was leaning against his Harley, the heavy weight of his cut and the weight of his reputation settling on his shoulders like two separate, equally burdensome cloaks. He was scanning the street, his face a mask of practiced indifference, a fortress of granite. Maplewood Park was a burst of innocent color and sound, children's laughter, the squeak of swings, the murmur of casual conversation. It was everything Hammer's life was not. He watched a little girl, no older than 7, chasing a balloon, her ponytail bobbing with pure, unadulterated joy. For a fleeting second, a memory, a ghost of a softer life, flickered in the depths of his blue eyes, eyes that had seen far too much. He quickly snuffed it out. Sentiment was a weakness he couldn't afford. Then the noise changed. The easy, ambient sound of the park was sliced through by a sharp, ugly cry. It wasn't the cry of a child falling off the monkey bars. It was the sound of pain and sudden terror. Hammer's head snapped up. He saw the source instantly. Near the edge of the sandbox, a boy, maybe 16, tall and gangly, was towering over the little girl who had been chasing the balloon. The balloon, now popped, lay limp on the ground. The boy was yelling, a torrent of mean-spirited frustration pouring out of him. The girl was sobbing, her hands covering her face. They were clearly siblings. The boy, oblivious to the public setting, was gesturing wildly, his face twisted into an expression of sheer rage. Suddenly, the boy's hand lashed out. It was a quick, brutal motion. The sound of the slap was shockingly loud in the open air, a sickening crack that made the few nearby parents freeze. The girl stumbled back, her hand flying to her cheek, her small body shaking as her sobs turned into choked, desperate gasps. The universal reaction followed, a sudden, collective silence. People looked. They tensed. A young mother instinctively pulled her toddler closer. A man fiddling with his phone finally looked up, but no one moved. No one intervened. The boy, emboldened by the lack of response, lifted his hand again, ready to deliver a verbal or physical follow-up. This is the pivot point. This is where the expectations of the world collided with the reality of Marcus "Hammer" Jensen. Every single person in that park saw the Bandidos patch, the heavy chain, the scarred knuckles. They expected a criminal, an instigator, a man who would either ignore it or, worse, escalate the violence. They expected the outlaw. But something in the little girl's raw, broken cry reached past the armor Hammer had spent decades constructing. It wasn't the violation of public space. It was the brutal, unfair imbalance of power. A towering teenager against a tiny, defenseless sister. It was cowardice, plain and simple, and Hammer had no tolerance for that particular brand of weakness. He pushed off his bike. The scrape of his heavy boot on the asphalt was the first sound to break the silence. He didn't rush. He moved with a measured, deliberate pace, every step heavy, every muscle coiled. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. The sheer, overwhelming size and presence of the man, a human wall of leather and intimidation, was enough. The teenager, still focused on his crying sister, didn't see Hammer until the biker was practically right next to him. When the boy finally registered the shadow looming over him, his aggressive stance evaporated, replaced by wide-eyed panic. He didn't recognize Hammer, but he recognized the type. He recognized the danger. Hammer didn't touch the boy. That wasn't the point. He simply stopped, his massive frame positioned between the terrified girl and her raging brother. He looked down at the teenager, his eyes holding the flat, cold emptiness of a deep winter lake. He didn't have to say, "I'm going to hurt you." He didn't have to threaten. The unspoken history of the Bandidos patch, the years of hard, uncompromising life written on his face, spoke volumes. Then he spoke. His voice, usually a rough growl, was pitched low, barely above a whisper, yet it carried the weight of a judge's final decree. "You lay a hand on her again," Hammer said, his gaze never wavering, "and you will spend the rest of your life hoping that the police find you before I do. Understand?" The boy didn't nod. He couldn't move. He was paralyzed, his bravado gone. He just stared, swallowing hard. Hammer then shifted his attention, moving to the little girl. He knelt slowly, his heavy cut brushing the sandy ground. It was an awkward motion for a man so large and rigid, but there was a surprising gentleness in it. The girl was still trembling. Hammer reached into his vest, pulling out a crisp $50 bill he was supposed to use for the meeting. He didn't offer it as compensation, but as a distraction. "Hey, little one," he rumbled, his voice softening just a fraction. "That balloon looked like a good one. Go get another one. Get two. Get a giant lollipop to go with it." He pressed the bill into her small, still shaking hand. The gesture coming from him was more shocking than the slap had been. The girl looked up, past the huge dark beard and the terrifying patch, and saw something unexpected, a kindness that felt safe. She took the money, and clutching it tight, she darted away, running towards the entrance where the ice cream truck often parked. Hammer stood up slowly, never once taking his eyes off the now subdued teenager. He didn't preach, he didn't lecture. He gave one final, powerful glare, a silent promise of eternal retribution should the boy mess up again, and then he turned his back. The incident was over. The lesson, he knew, had been administered not by the police, but by the weight of a legend. He walked back to his bike, the silence in the park, holding firm until his engine roared to life, shattering the peace one final, resonant time. The outlaw had delivered his own brand of justice, and for a small moment, the expectations of the world had been proven wrong. The park slowly exhaled. The tension, which had been thick and suffocating, began to dissipate like smoke. The gathered crowd, the silent witnesses to the unexpected confrontation, started to shift, murmuring amongst themselves. They weren't discussing the aggressive teenager, they were discussing the biker, the Bandido's patch holder. The fear was still there, a residual charge in the air, but it was now mixed with a heavy dose of confusion and disbelief. The narrative had been broken. The villain, for once, had played the part of the protector. Meanwhile, back at the periphery of the park, Marcus Hammer Jensen hadn't gone far. He rode his heavy Harley just a single block away, parking discreetly behind a row of towering oak trees. The meeting he was supposed to attend could wait. His mind, usually a cold, calculating machine focused on club business and survival, was momentarily snagged on the image of the little girl's trembling lip and the immediate, brutal cowardice of her brother. He pulled a cheap cigar from his inner vest pocket, lighting it with a flick of a Zippo lighter that was etched with the club's insignia. He wasn't a family man. Not anymore. The life he lived had long ago extinguished any hope of a conventional future. But he remembered his own sister years ago, a distant memory of a childhood long since swallowed by the harshness of the streets. He remembered the feeling of being small, exposed and helpless. It was a universal dread, one that transcended patches, laws and moral codes. Hammer didn't intervene to be a hero. He intervened because the sight offended his deeply ingrained, albeit twisted, sense of order. There were rules even in the outlaw world. Rules about respect, rules about loyalty, and most importantly, rules about the weak. In his book, you didn't use your size to punish the defenseless, especially family. That wasn't toughness. It was garbage. He sat there, the acrid smoke of the cigar curling around his helmetless head, just watching. He wanted to make sure the lesson stuck, that his glare and his words weren't just temporary speed bumps. And as he watched, he saw the boy, the aggressor, sitting alone on a park bench, his head down, looking pale and profoundly shaken. The fear was real. The authority of a massive, cold-eyed outlaw had done what years of parental scolding or even school detention might never accomplish. It had imposed a visceral understanding of consequences. A few minutes later, the little girl reappeared. She was holding a vibrant, cartoon-themed balloon and a massive, swirling lollipop. She walked gingerly, glancing nervously over her shoulder, clearly still frightened. She didn't approach the boy directly. Instead, she wandered toward the swings. As she began to swing tentatively, a woman approached the teenager on the bench. She was clearly their mother, her face etched with worry and exhaustion. She sat down next to her son, talking softly, then more emphatically. The boy didn't look up, but his posture showed submission. The mother then looked across the park, her eyes scanning the crowd, perhaps trying to piece together what had happened. She eventually spotted the imposing figure of Hammer across the street, sitting silently on his bike, the sun glinting off the chrome. She didn't approach him. She couldn't. The fear was too immediate, too potent. But she looked at the patch, then at his face, and for a long, quiet moment, there was a flicker of something in her eyes that wasn't pure terror. It was a complex mix of apprehension and, almost unbelievably, gratitude. She was a mother who had just been witness to a trauma, and the person who had stopped the abuse was the very man society tells her to run from. Hammer saw the look. He didn't acknowledge it. He didn't want thanks or recognition. He merely tipped his head, a bare, almost imperceptible gesture, a nod of finality. The debt was settled. The order was restored. He flicked the cigar butt onto the curb, kicked his bike to life, and the great machine roared its presence one last time. As he pulled away, disappearing down the avenue, the boy finally looked up. He watched the massive motorcycle disappear, and the fear in his eyes seemed to solidify into a different kind of feeling, understanding. He knew, with absolute certainty, that he had just skirted a disaster far worse than anything the police could deliver. He had faced true, unbridled threat, and it had been delivered on behalf of his little sister. What the world saw was an outlaw leaving the scene. What the mother saw was a guardian angel in leather. What the boy felt was the chilling promise of non-negotiable protection. Marcus Hammer Jensen rode on, back into the shadows and the business that defined his life. He wouldn't brag about the incident at the clubhouse. It wasn't a war story. It was a blip, a moment of unexpected, necessary intervention. But as he rode, the tightness around his chest, the perpetual tension of his existence, was marginally lessened. He was still the outlaw. He was still the bandido. But for one brief, indelible moment, he had used his reputation, his sheer, terrifying presence, not to cause chaos, but to enforce a fundamental rule of humanity. He didn't save the world that day. He didn't even save a family. He simply ensured that a little girl could enjoy her new balloon and her lollipop without the shadow of fear hanging over her. And sometimes in the cold, hard world of an outlaw biker, that small act of unexpected decency is a victory bigger than any turf war. The street respects power, but true respect, the kind that lasts, is earned when power chooses to protect the weak. And that is a story worth telling.